ProgrammableWeb started in 2005. And then, it started with 30 APIs in the catalog, and then, gradually grew, and then the slope got steeper over the next 5 years, right? What we thought of as three legs. There was the API catalog of these APIs. The second was the mashups, which people don't use that phrase anymore, right? Of the people combining APIs to build new things. And then there were the developers and them and themselves and the social aspect. And there was the blog and the news part. So, and now, of course, the funny thing is the mashup part's kind of gone. Nobody says that anymore. And really what matters is the APIs. And I think the productization, and I think it goes to Sam and Laura in terms of both Apigee and Mashery being two of those early leaders in sort of how do you take the Wild West and build it and systematize that and make that into a repeatable process, right? And not just hackers imaginatively thinking about, how am I going to build like housing maps, the first mashup, right? Paul Rademacher sort of taking Google Maps and sort of, and what was it? Was it eBay data? Whatever it was, some sort of, no, it was Craigslist data. Craigslist, programmable web came about kind of, there's a bit of the e-commerce thing that Sam was talking about where I think a lot of the sort of web APIs did get their start in the e-commerce space, right? So eBay, for example, had an early XML-based API over HTTP. It was probably a SOAP API originally in the early 2000s, right? The same time that Sam's talking about. But it was so painful, right, to make all this interoperability happen that part of what I think started to happen on the web was the search for forms, right? So the whole idea of a RESTful API, so where that evolved to during the aughts, 2005 plus, was disparate, web-based systems across companies. But using the technology that we had at the time, the older ones, it was painful. So that kind of gave rise to that idea of having a RESTful web API. So I think that's part of where that story goes from there. And it does tie in to the programmable web story, where that came from, because the genesis of programmable web wasn't that when I started that business, it wasn't to create a web directory of APIs. It was actually that I had some crazy idea to build, do product arbitrage across e-commerce sites. And they used these crappy XML APIs, but other companies like Amazon, they started to open up additional APIs. So in doing that research as to what was available, I built this list and then decided, somebody else could use this list of these API things that, are happening at the time. So that sort of was the genesis of programmable web. It was a side effect of the research that I was doing around a different business idea, right? So that was kind of the inspiration for that.
Who knew? That's so interesting. So the first APIs were the e-commerce APIs because of this business idea you had, arbitrage.